It's too late.
It's November 11th, 2019. And this is BubbleStuff.
Still no music.
Still no music.
We'll make our own music.
We'll make our own music.
Should we just do crinkle cut?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you said we could have Kenny G, but we'll do that next week.
Do
Then.
crinkle cut at the beginning.
All that ASMR.
That's it.
I am Tim Herb. As always, I'm joined by my lovely co-hosts, Kevin Bradley across from me and my lovely wife,
No, you gotta,
Angie Herb,
you
next
gotta,
to me.
Whenever you introduce, then we.
Oh.
So
the whole point of the show is we're going to hang out and we're going to drink bubble tea and we're going to talk about the stuff that we've been creating and working on and personal projects, all that stuff. So this is the first time we've actually had the bubble tea. And
Yeah.
good.
for anybody who drinks a significant amount of bubble tea, you know how satisfying that is whenever they get the seal right at the top. You ever go to the ones that give you
I went
like
too hard on it.
the ones that give you a traditional top?
Oh
You're
yeah,
like, what is this?
Yeah.
What is
No.
it? You amateurs?
exactly.
And then it's like they pureed taro into it.
Oh, this is a good size. This is a new place. Ding tea.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
No sugar, but how's it?
Oh yeah.
I
That-
got
that's sweet.
half sugar.
Is it too much?
Bye. It's real good.
As Brian said, finally actual bubble tea.
Yeah.
That is correct.
So check this, guys. Check this out, guys. We're doing a new. You'll see a new watermark on the video right now. We're starting to use a new app or software that Tim found so that we can do screen sharing on YouTube. So whenever we're talking about projects and things that we need to see visually, we can do screen share in it, but we can also share comments from the trap, which is pretty awesome. So if you want to join in on the fun, check out YouTube /
Home Before Dark. If you guys are listening to us, watching us on YouTube, make sure that you guys hit the subscribe button, notification bell icon. I don't think you'll ever get these notifications. Seems like mine come over email sometimes, never to my phone anymore.
Yeah.
But anyway, if you're listening
Pretty cool.
to us on iTunes or Stitcher, what have you, leave us a rating and or a review. We will read the review out loud on the show. Angie will read the first one.
Dun, dun, dun.
We've yet to get one.
and we can screen share that.
Yeah, we could screen share it.
So
yeah,
many
for
things.
sure.
So
yeah.
many things that we can do now.
Thank
Pretty
God.
great.
Yeah,
Pretty great.
it is pretty great.
Mhm.
This bubble tea is really good. Ding
What?
Tea on Jimmy Carter Boulevard. Is that where it is?
Uh-huh.
Or on Singleton Road, Norcross.
The diameter of straw to circumference of boba, much bigger. So it's just
It's like a true machine gun to the throat.
It was good though. I like it.
I like it too. I like
So-
it too. This is very good.
Second episode number, or technically third episode. We'll say episode number 2, right?
Yeah.
So we made some improvements to the format last week. We established some benchmarks and things that we were going to do coming into this week, and some things to the format of the show. So with that, the two things that we talked about at the end of last week were the accountability and setting goals for each month and getting a sort of fundraiser thermometer approach to things, right? Which we put it in. I don't know how we're going to incorporate.
We didn't
that
really
yet.
do it.
We're gonna have to like print it out every week. I have red carpenter's crayons in the garage.
But we did set up a spreadsheet, at least in Google Drive, so that we can share what all projects we want to achieve this month. And we also set up a goal to do a field trip once a month in which one of us would plan and organize, and we would all go out, learn something new, see something new, or maybe something familiar, and try to grow creatively as a result of that. So
Yeah, and I think you've set the bar too high on Saturday.
no.
Because I'm next, so you're gonna be fine. Because it's gonna plummet. The expectations are gonna drop real low, and then you'll be able to
But Kevin did that
shoot it
with
back up.
less than a week to plan. You
Dude.
can do it in a month.
Dude, yeah, don't hold yourself to any.
We didn't do our thermometer this week, but we planned. We all put our goals in within like one day.
Mhm.
We all had 3 goals down.
Mhm.
Kevin planned a field trip.
Mhm.
We did that in 5 days.
You made the spreadsheet.
I made the spreadsheet.
Of course
I
you did.
love making
Yeah.
spreadsheets. I've had spreadsheets that aren't necessary for anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where should we start this week's conversation? Should we start with field trip or should we start with objectives?
Field trip.
Field
Field
trip.
trip.
Right.
Okay.
So it was my my month to plan the field trip. So the approach that I wanted to take was to try to organize stops that would help facilitate the research and development and resourcing to these creative pursuits. So it was a triple feature of different stops that I didn't realize that you guys had never been to. I knew that you hadn't gone to Life Cycle Building Center, but I didn't know that you guys had never even been to Binders, which is the main art supply store.
No, I was joking. Yeah. I remember you telling me that you spent $70. I thought you said on binders. And immediately invoked a bunch of like Mitt Romney 2012 jokes about binders full. Like, how many women do you have to put in these binders, Kevin? $70 worth? Are we talking 3.5-inch binders?
How are they
4-inch
organized?
binders?
Yeah. So we did Binders was the first stop over at Ponce, and which I will say, if you guys enjoyed that, the one over on Piedmont, it's my personal preference. It's a little bit bigger, a little bit more variety. But did that. Then the second stop was Life Cycle Building Center, and then the third stop was Book Nook over in Decatur. So you got the full range of resource, materials, idea generators. And so what were your thoughts on the day?
I think Book Nook was my favorite.
Yeah.
And we didn't even see all of it. We got too hungry at a certain point.
Yeah.
We had been in there. I don't know if we even saw a half of it, 3/4 of it.
No, we still haven't seen that part of the story that you were saying. You're like, I haven't had time to get back to that section, and we still didn't go to that section.
Yeah, there's so many things in there. You could spend a day in that.
It's really cool because I feel like you have those consignment stores for pop culture and for video games, for comic books, for comic book stores in and of themselves. A lot of the times,
Comics is a great example of that.
But this to me was like the best I've seen it done.
Yeah,
it's crazy how organized it was very welcomed in my eyes, because it is extremely overwhelming to walk into literally hundreds of bookshelves.
It was like a bazaar. That's the best way I can describe it.
Yeah,
because it has a little bit of something
how
for
bizarre,
everybody.
though.
How bizarre.
That's going to be a theme music for this episode.
It. Yeah, so they've got a little bit of everything. We just went in there and glossed over the whole front half of the store, which is DVDs and games and records and stuff like that, because we were really just there for books.
Oh, I forgot they had the DVDs there.
Exactly.
The entire back section.
Yeah, so it's comic books, DVDs, games, records.
That's another
books.
place I can go to trade in all of our Blu-rays, probably.
Yeah.
Ooh, store credit.
Yeah, for Christmas ideas, Christmas books.
Yeah.
No, but one thing they had a whole section. Like we ended up buying 2 things from eBay that weren't even things, or they were inspired by the store, because they had a whole section of donated Life magazines from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Did it stop in the 70s? Did it go as high as the 70s? It might have just stopped in the 60s. But then Angie started looking at it. She's like, I wonder if her grandpa got shot down in World War II.
Yes. Don't ruin the Christmas presents too much.
I am not even thinking about this. Sorry.
It's okay. You didn't quite get to where we ended up going with the Christmas ideas, and they're probably not going to hear it. But
it's a great store. It's a great resource.
It's a great store.
We bought things they didn't even have in the store because of what we saw in the store.
Well, again, and that's what that was sort of the line that I wanted to take with each one of these. Sort of had an intent, right? Like, so with Book Nook, one of the things that I really like about that place, or what I like about creating and doing projects in general, is that the idea that you maybe start out thinking that you want to do grows and evolves based on influence or other things that you reference or look at, right? So with Book Nook, you are in a particular section that you might be looking at books on animals or space, and then that ends up leading you towards books about wildlife or whatever, as far as plants and stuff like that, that you start to fill in maybe the background around whatever your subject matter is. And so much of art is about the referencing, because you're not completely reinventing the wheel. Even if you're doing original content or original characters, you're still having to draw some influence, whether subconsciously or consciously, to whatever you're producing. So from that standpoint, Book Nook is an awesome resource for that, because you can go in there and just let it wash over you.
I will
really.
say, with I talk about how well everything was organized. I will say though that the woodworking section was a little scant of options, but
it's I think it's because it starts to, that's where
It
you see the
bleeds-
common
it
threads.
bleeds lines,
It
yeah.
starts to go into other
because you found
things.
something in like the home renovation area,
Right.
you were like, oh, it's a furniture book. It's like, oh, okay. Well, I could sit here for hours just
Mhm.
trying to rifle
Mhm.
through everything in the
Mhm.
in the craft section just to find something.
Same thing. I was looking at architecture books, end up finding more of those or other similar architecture books related to specific areas over in archaeology, anthropology, or southern states, Atlanta architecture books over in that section of things. So you start to see where the lines get to blur and find those things maybe where you weren't originally looking, and then find other things as a result of looking in those spots. So
Yeah. What did you you didn't end up getting anything?
no, I got 2 books from there the last time I was there. So all of the places that we went to, I have, aside from Binders, I did get something new from Binders, which we'll talk about whenever we talk about projects and stuff. But yeah, so Book Nook and Life Cycle Building, I had gotten things recently from. So Life Cycle, obviously, I did the kitchenette downstairs, and I got a good bit of the materials from there for that. And then Book Nook, I got those 2 books right before I came and picked you guys up from the airport a couple of weeks ago, which was this architectural pen and ink drawing book from the 60s, which is all just really pretty pictures and how you reference what the whole book is about, using photography and photographing models to then do pen and ink overlays to do these architectural presentation drawings. And then the other one was instilling life through drawing for the Disney animation studios for the early Disney movies. So it was really cool whenever I was in the midst of Inktober of trying to see how you stretch proportions and do things with a form and figure to get that animation in it from stills. So
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I ended up picking up a book on finishing projects, finishing wood. And that was something that was definitely welcomed, because it's so hard to find consistent information to me online and all these forums about how like sanding, like what the process should be to, and what grits you go up to with certain sanding techniques for certain types of wood, and what type of varnishes and finishes and sealers and all that stuff are necessary with all that
Yeah.
stuff. And I found a nice like how-to book on
Yeah.
that.
And sometimes it's good, the other problem that what we started to frame this show in is trying to get focused, like a focused vision or focused field of vision with projects, because it gets so overwhelming of like, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this, I want to do that. Research can get to be the same way with online like resources. You can start watching
Yeah.
videos, and then there's so many videos you can't get focused on the thing that you originally started looking at. So that's where sometimes those books can be a way to focus your research efforts into a particular thing, and it forces you to only look at that. So
Yeah. Source materials and inspiration. You ended up getting.
I got a book on North American mammals. I think it was just mammals.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I've seen anything in that book that wasn't a mammal. I don't think so.
I don't think so. And then a book on national parks. But to that same thing about if I can't decide what animal to draw, like with the hornbill, I grab a book of birds
Yeah.
or North American mammals and flip through and at least get an idea of, oh, that looks really cool. And then I can go on the internet
Yep.
and find more specific pictures of that animal and what angle I want to draw it from. And
Yep.
yeah, but it's so hard to start with no ideas and then just have a book of ideas to look through.
Right. So the other stop we did was Life Cycle Building Center.
Yeah, that was really cool. So I had known I hadn't known of it by name, but I knew of it because of Ryan and because of you, Ryan, having gotten Pond City Market hardwood or reclaimed wood
Yeah.
to make into his hardwoods at his home, and then you getting stuff from Phillips Arena to make into your backsplash for your downstairs.
Yeah.
That was really cool. I mean, above all else, the number one, like we posted it to the story, when I accidentally changed the profile picture on Instagram to that picture. And the whole fact that I think it was 4 million pounds of waste has been diverted from landfills, and some millions of dollars, whatever, have been raised as a result of that.
Yeah.
I guess tell everybody the whole idea behind Life Cycle, where they can find it and all that.
So it's down in South Atlanta. Actually, it's not far from the West End MARTA station where Soccer in the Streets has their field set up at. And it's a big abandoned warehouse that is just architecturally, it's just a cool space to be in. It's this really, really, really neat space to just walk around, even if you don't find anything there. But it started out as almost like a Habitat Restore, if you're familiar with that business model of Habitat for Humanity, taking more appliances and furniture and structuring the Goodwill business model for home goods, and then translating that into home ownership and home improvement. It's similar to that, but it's with actual building materials. So it's hardwood floors, light fixtures, really big appliances, cabinets, stuff like that. So they get donated materials from all over the city whenever buildings are getting demolished and stuff like that, that get repurposed and reused for other projects around the city. So
we're laughing because that's either my mom or my dad in the chat.
Yeah,
Did they say
correcting me.
1860 though? That's not right either.
No, it's 1960.
yeah, he said 1960.
Oh,
It
it's
was,
a 9?
Yeah, it was Cold War.
No, I know
Yeah.
it's supposed to be a 9, but in the chat it looks like it's an 8.
No, he changed it though at
Yeah.
the bottom.
Oh, there
he
it is.
corrected
Okay.
himself to 1960.
Redacted.
Yeah, no, it was really cool, and part of it is just the expansiveness of their like selection. Or what exactly they take within reason. They take anything.
Yeah.
In terms of like deconstruction or over purchasing too. Whenever they're making.
Well, that's what they were saying.
constructing
They have
buildings.
to become the sieve essentially to filter out all that stuff.
At first, I thought he was like civ. It's like a civic engineer, like a civil engineer, or no, he means like an actual sieve, as if you're like filtering things. Yeah.
Which I liked that he said that not everything can be saved and it's okay.
Right.
It's not just a junkyard.
Right.
They're not hoarding everything.
Right.
Somebody's actually looking at things that, even though a lot of people might not think it could get used, somebody has an idea for it, so they're keeping it, or something else that you might hold on to forever but really can't be used for anything.
Yeah.
They're not holding on to that. So I liked that.
Yeah. Completely off topic, but there's been talk about Hulu and Disney Plus and ESPN subscriptions. Are you guys getting the Disney Plus?
By default.
That's
By
right. You are.
Yeah. Those of you who have Verizon and a unlimited plan through Verizon, you get Disney Plus for free, which
That's
is awesome for a year. For
That's
a year,
cool.
just like we just recently got new phones, and Apple gave us a free year of Apple TV Plus.
Do you know how
too.
long that's going on for?
I don't.
Because that's the thing I got to look into. Because I've got to change carriers soon, and I don't know if I'm going to go with Verizon or Comcast. So I'm trying to.
Well, at the end of the day, I mean, it's probably the same thing, right? Same
Well,
towers
they
and
use the same
everything.
towers,
but,
absolutely.
But if you get free Apple Music and free
right,
Disney,
but I'm not
for
going
a
to use
year.
Apple Music. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
So I want to get Disney Plus just for The Mandalorian alone.
I
So,
just want to watch Brink.
of course you do.
Yes,
And Johnny Tsunami.
I wasn't a huge Johnny Tsunami guy.
What's wrong with you?
Any of you people in the trap, what was your favorite? What was your favorite Disney made for Disney movie?
And what are
Like
you
Disney
looking
Channel
forward to
movie?
the most with Disney Plus?
Because everybody, it has something for everybody, right? I mean, there's
Yeah.
Star Wars, there's Marvel, there's
Pixar,
and then there's Disney. And
And
Disney encompasses
National
so much
Geographic's
stuff.
on
National
there.
Geographic is on there.
and The Simpsons has gotten picked up on there.
National Geographic.
Yeah,
There's animals on
yeah,
there.
exactly. Just watch Planet Earth and
Yeah.
go to sleep.
Well, that'd be perfect for you. I mean, you were just talking about. Well, maybe you still get motion sick.
Oh shit, we got Spaz City
Yeah.
Ryan in here.
Yeah, Ryan. What's happening, Ryan?
Oh
Uh,
man.
Yeah. God. The days of raiding 3 times every Tuesday. Out the door.
Man, I miss it though.
Yeah.
I miss those dudes, Ryan and Daniel.
Anthrax.
Anthrax. It was so fun, man.
Those were good video game days.
Now, to that point, this is completely, it's in the same line of conversation, and I know that you won't necessarily have that experience, but with the field trip, one of the good parts about the day was the conversations that we had along the way, not just the destinations that we were at, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that Tim said that really struck a chord with me was his, not really revelation, because we've talked about it before, but I think we talked about it more in depth about now that you're getting more involved with doing creative pursuits and doing these things, that you're finding more, not validation, but more,
no, I mean, there's fulfillment and
like,
tangibility.
yeah, more fulfillment than you could or have in the past with video games or just watching TV or whatever. So what are your thoughts on that, both of you guys, about those pursuits versus maybe the alternatives? Have you seen things maybe get back to normal whenever you're pursuing things creatively versus whenever you're not, or vice versa?
I think having 3 weeks between Chomp and Stomp and Indie Craft and having a chance to draw something new definitely changed up my week for me, because I have plenty of things I should be doing for the next festival, but to take time to draw from start to finish something completely new again just kind of refreshes everything, starts me thinking about new ideas for what's next, and not just in my normal routine of coming home from work, looking at craft stuff on the computer, planning, and
Yeah.
not making things. So,
Ooh, I'm gonna put a pin in that.
yeah.
Looking at things and not making things. Product versus project.
Yeah.
Coming back to that, it's on my notes.
Yeah, I feel like we still binge watch some TV, or not even we don't really even binge watch TV that much.
We put The Office on in the background a
We do.
lot.
Yeah.
It's
just
something that we
comforting.
can, it's like comfort background noise.
Yeah.
But as I've also had to find a balance with this, because I work in the garage.
Yeah.
And she's drawing on the couch or drawing at her table, and it's tough, because I want to spend as much time as possible with Angie, but at the same time, like, I need to figure out the best way to handle production and completion out there, and then also still maintain a home life. It's the same as it is with work. Because the thing with running the CNC machine is I really can't abandon it. I have to stay out there because something might go wrong. A belt might break, or a bit might break, which happens more than I'd like to admit. And then, something might catch fire. I don't know.
So
Just one of those things.
So let's talk about whenever things do go wrong, because just as much enjoyment as you can get out of something versus the alternative, because you're actually engaging in it, part of that is that I feel like the frustrations maybe manifest themselves in a more severe manner as well, versus we've all been there. Ryan knows very well, in playing video games, you get very frustrated whenever your efforts come up short. In creative endeavors, whenever you're literally just staring at the failed results, you're faced with the challenge of having to reconcile that with yourself. So what has been both of your experiences and approach with that so far? And I say that as a loaded question because I know Tim has recently been dealing with that.
I have a lot of half-drawn pencil outlines. I think once I can actually get into the coloring part of it, I've only ever abandoned like 1 or 2 things, because it gets more motivating from there. But I have a hard time getting things to look right in the beginning stage, and a lot of times I'll just give up and leave those behind.
Yeah.
The chat.
Yeah. Time plus materials kind of weighs into it too. Because part of it is I spend time prepping and getting buying wood, getting it prepped, sanding it down, sealing it, painting it, whatever. And then to get all the way through a project and then to have it fail at the end or not look right, it just ends up being extremely frustrating.
Yeah. But how can we translate our mentality with Atlanta United to
everything's found money?
No, not just that, right? Like, what is the thing that we talk about like all the time with sports or with Atlanta United? It's like, don't let the score at the end of the game dictate your enjoyment out of the experience, right? So, like, while that I completely agree, that's extremely frustrating, and I can't imagine because that's not my situation, and I haven't had to experience that and go through that process. The only thing I can equate it to is something very similar, which is that you spend the time to invest in tickets and going out and supporting a team and putting in, all of this stock into your enjoyment to potentially come up short on a result at the end of it. Don't let that diminish everything that led up to it. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, and we talked about it last week. It's just finding more of a learning experience. I mean, I envy the fact that like you guys would probably have an easier time recovering from a mistake.
Yes. My mistakes come at the beginning, and then towards the end I can make most mistakes still work out fine.
I make a mistake, my stock is done.
Right.
Like the stock, like yeah, it's done. It's in the burn pile.
But how can we? That's not always necessarily true. That entire it is if you frame it that way, right? Like just because you have an entire sheet of material and you've messed up some portion of it doesn't mean you've got to give up everything on it. Like you can.
No, I mean I trimmed down some of the excess the other night, but
I'm not trying to invalidate your frustrations by any means.
And it's so early that you're not making the same mistakes over and over. If you keep doing the same thing every time and you just can't remember to get it right, then sure. But right now, every time you make a mistake, you're just not doing that again.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
So,
binders.
That's what I was going to go to next. So, speaking of prepping materials and getting things ready for,
I like what Coach Steve said. He said, as a coach, I spend a good deal of time teaching players how to separate performance and effort from result.
Right.
It's go back to Marvin Harrison from the Colts, one of the greatest wide receivers of our time. He said, you pay me to practice, I play the games for free. And I kind of think about that the same way. Like in the same way, and like if we watch a lot of MMA and those fighters, they get paid to train. Like, because that's 3 months every single day, 2 times a day. And then the payoff might not always come, but you do. I mean, to take it like a training camp, essentially, I can probably treat some of those failed experiments as training camps because I am finding.
And that's how you get to be at a level that you're able to go out and play the game. And to use the same metaphor, right? Like without going through that training and the failure at training, you don't strengthen the muscles and know how to work through those problems or avoid them altogether to get to a point to where you're actually being able to work on commissions or work on larger projects on a more consistent basis.
What if we put a whiteboard out there?
Ooh.
Because I know a lot of the things that you're going to learn along the way of like, this wood carves really well. This bit is for this. Like that stuff you're just going to remember. But sometimes if you can just throw a note up on the board of like, this type of wood is really good for this project, not so good for this project, and just start a list that you can kind of reference.
And I think we should start a spreadsheet, a lessons learned spreadsheet.
Ooh.
Along with
real
our
life spreadsheet,
along with what we're talking about with our monthly goals, maybe our monthly mistakes as well, so that we can talk about the stuff the stuff that we maybe messed up on, or how we're better prepared to adapt or respond to that in the future.
Okay,
I like that. One thing I should put up on that whiteboard is the emergency stop order of operations.
It's the red button.
It's red button, then stop the router. Don't stop the router, then stop. Then
because it's just gonna
So that happened the other night. That was speaking of failures. I was so excited to test. So I tested out some new bits that we had gotten. And it worked really well on cedar, which I can put that up on the screen in a little bit. And I was testing it on some plywood to do a test sheet for a commission that we have, and it got through cutting something, and one of the letters popped out, and then the bit started hitting it. So I stopped the spindle on the router, and then it was still going.
Exactly.
And then because it was the machine
versus getting it to stop going.
Yeah.
So that it's still spinning, but it's not hitting anything. You did the reverse. So
And
it
then
just kept
snap.
moving and just.
and this little piece of metal is a 16th of an inch thick, and it just
Did it shoot at you like a little bullet
No.
across the garage?
it's it's definitely fun.
All right. So binders, we went to binders over at Ponce, and you've got both of you guys, all three of us got new stuff there, right? So who wants to go first on that one? What'd you get, Angie?
You basically just took us shopping all day. Kevin takes us shopping. I got a eraser tool that Kevin showed me, which is really cool. It looks like a mechanical pencil, but instead of lead, it's eraser.
It's one of my favorite things that I got during Inktober.
So we're
I
talking
swear
about
by that fucking eraser.
how you're trying to, if you're using a mechanical pencil or a regular eraser, trying to look at it, guess which part's the highest part to get inside of your drawing and not erasing the line that's good.
Yeah, especially if you're working on something more times than not, if you're sketching something, the detail that you're doing, unless you're doing like figure drawing or something like that, the detail that you're doing is sometimes around the size of like a nickel and filling in inside of that space of a nickel. And sometimes those bigger erasers, whether it's like the gum erasers or whatever, are the size of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And you can't just erase one little line. And it's extremely frustrating to try to shoot the gap and try to hit that. So it's getting a little eraser that's like a mechanical pencil that you can just erase one tiny part has been a lifesaver for me. That I can't believe it took me this long to actually get one of those.
Yeah, I didn't even know that exists, but
Yeah.
why wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So that's awesome. And then I got 3 markers, 3 more colors to try.
Nice.
I think that's all I got.
No, that sounds right. A couple greens, right?
Blue, a pink, and
I'll claim color blindness.
maybe green. I don't know.
Yeah. And then I picked up laminate. I picked up or not laminate, linoleum speedball stamp material, which I didn't realize is something that comes stock as a option to carve in the Xcarve software. It's
That's
like one of the
awesome, dude.
one of the first few things that's in the list that
That's
they
gonna
sell.
be really cool.
And it's cheap too. I mean, I think the blocks that I got a 8x6 maybe block that was, I don't know, $4, something like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, the Xcarve should do, like, the CNC machine should make pretty easy work of that linoleum. The other thing I saw, a guy went to Home Depot, got some free floor samples.
Yeah.
And then used those as stamps.
That's what we
because
did.
It's linoleum.
That's what we did in school during like summer arts and stuff. That's what Noosh
Oh.
does is you get the big sheets of linoleum and you like use the little carvers to
Yep.
carve it out.
Which
and
we
then you just
have.
need the press and
Yeah.
roll with it. Yeah.
Yep.
Joe Johnstone says he still has that bottle of Old Fourth bourbon for a silly season get together.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah, and Coach Steve's down for it too.
We definitely need to plan that. So some of you guys that are still hanging out with us, obviously we made the announcement last week. Some of you may not have gotten it. We just got the episode up today. But if not, you've certainly learned by now that we're officially in the off season, this show and this show format, which we've titled Bubble Stuff, is going to be us talking about our creative pursuits and endeavors in the off season. We'll still do Atlanta United Weekly whenever the opportunity presents itself, but in the meantime, we're just going to be kind of hanging out and trying to push each other to keep doing stuff. So, all right. So that's you two. That's pretty sick.
Kevin
It
hasn't
fits.
Kevin hasn't told us what he got
Yeah,
yet.
what did you get at Binders? Sorry, I was just messing around
It
with
is
that.
awesome, but we'll come back to it.
So everything that I have been doing lately has been with just Micron pen and ink stuff since coming off of Inktober. And I've been trying to get a new concept together for a new creative pursuit going forward. And I had some ideas on what that may be. And then I finally was able to get my thoughts together on a format and a direction going forward. And part of that entails continuing the pen and ink format, but I wanted to try to experiment with that. So rather than doing just black ink, I got a set of microns that are blue ink, which we'll be able to talk about whenever we get into projects. So exciting.
Dun, dun, dun.
So that said, should we pull up our progress board or anything else left to talk about on our
It
field
was
trip?
a really good field trip day.
Oh, it was absolutely
It was
a good
very
field trip
fun.
day.
And then we ate really good food.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys had a good time. It
All
was a
day.
great fucking day.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. Again, it was just, I thought it was great to have the conversations that we were able to have, along with going and doing and seeing the stuff that we did, talking about what and why is both the act of creating and the process of doing so so fulfilling, and what it allows you to do to kind of turn your mind off of doing other stuff, and then to talk about how or what we're all doing. We talked about how your art would translate to the X-Carve, or how the planning stages for what you're doing on the X-Carve could be translated or changed by doing more or different upfront planning through sketching or whatever. You know what I mean? So it was cool to have that mind meld throughout the day, which I thought was really good. So
Yeah.
all right, shall we pull up the spreadsheet?
Oh, the spreadsheet.
Yeah, I want to see the spreadsheet first.
Okay.
Goals.
Because we
Yeah.
got to pull up that to know where we're going.
Let's see.
And we can test the
Chrome
screen share.
tab. I can share November Google Sheet, and then I will.
I'll zoom out.
Or I'll just go over.
Okay.
Maybe, or just increase the size.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Hopefully, you guys can see that. So on the
Yeah, there it
for
goes.
those of you guys who are watching, you can see that. But for those of you guys listening, I guess we'll just try to be as descriptive as possible.
Yeah. Well, so let's just go through and just sort of list what all. So the way this is formatted was the first line was to be our goals for coming into this week's episode. We said we wanted to do some things coming out of last week into this week, provide a recap on that, and then also thinking ahead to the next couple of weeks. So if we could just all go through and list what those things are, and then we can kind of get into the meat and potatoes.
So you're first on the list.
So for me, I wanted to finish the Inktober piece that I had worked on last month. I had some detailing and some gaps that I needed to fill in on that, which was an interesting process. It was one of those big projects that I had put off, not necessarily put off, but that it's always challenging to really finish a project like that whenever you've invested so much time and you're faced with the finality of it and only seeing the flaws rather than just the finish line. So I just needed to get done with it and stick to the mantra of like finished, not perfect, just get it done, and then just step back and look at it and appreciate it for what it is. So it was finishing the Inktober and beginning or thinking about a proof of concept for a new project, which I'm titling No Place Like Home. And we'll get into some of the weeds of that. Then going forward this month, I've got a couple of commissions which came up as a result of these pursuits and these endeavors that people have asked me to work on. And then a couple of logo designs for some stuff. A buddy of mine does some bourbon blends around the holidays, and he wanted me to come up with a logo because he puts it on.
What is a bourbon blend? Is that like you take Buffalo Trace 1-year-old and Buffalo Trace 2-year-old and you mix them together?
Yeah, basically. But you want to. So I have an infinity bottle, which is every bottle that I open, I pour 1 ounce out of the bottle that I open into this big bottle. So it is just a
Oh.
blend of a lot of bourbons that I really like.
But you
So-
don't ever actually go and drink any of that, do you?
Yeah, I do.
You do?
Every now and then I do. Yeah.
Huh. But how
So-
do you know that you didn't drink all of the bullet from it?
What do you mean?
Like, what if it didn't mix all the way?
Oh, shut
And
up.
like, what if you only have like 4 out of the 5 bourbons that you've put in there?
That's not how it works.
Yeah. But how
So-
well are you mixing it? Are you putting it in a blender?
So most people that drink a lot of bourbon have a infinity bottle, but my friend George and coworker, he does blends every year based on mash bills and complementary ages and ingredients, for lack of a better term. So there's a way that you can make Pappy, which is sort of the creme de la creme of bourbon, by taking Weller 12 and Weller Antique and combining them in a certain ratio because they have the exact same mash bill. The only difference is the barreling process and the age. So you can find the exact combination and put it in a smaller surface area barrel to get something very comparable to what's called poor man's patty. So he does different things like that over the year. So he wants to come up with a little logo for that. So that was the last thing on my list.
All right. On my list, I had for this week, coming into this week, to be done at least with proof of concept and I guess a product. And actually ended up with 2 products as this says, coasters and an ornament, like a Christmas ornament of a cutout of the state of Georgia, and show some of that stuff. And then also we've been working for what seems like a month now on a commission for our friend who does art shows too, Day, and what's her Instagram handle, or her store is Daylight Glassworks, but
That's her Instagram too.
Her Instagram handle is Daylight Glassworks. Really cool stained glass, handmade. She does a really, really good job. So we're spending a lot of time trying to make sure that we can give the same amount of, or same quality that she's putting out in her booth every other weekend, that it's represented by what we're making for her. So that's really next on the list. And then I want to make a like a light up home before dark sign. So it's going to be like a 3D block with some acrylic on the front, and then programmable LED strip light inside of it.
Nice.
So you can
I like
flip it on and off, almost like an on-air sign.
Tie it to Alexa.
Yeah. No, Google. This is a Google house.
No, that sounds awesome.
I did not realize we were supposed to put them in order.
It doesn't matter.
I wanted to finish my hornbill drawing. I think last week I only had the pencil outline for it, so I finished that this week, and now I need to make calendars. So every year I make tiny desk calendars that have a drawing on each month, and they just are little cards that sit in a little wood block, and I want to make new ones for next year. I've used the same 12 pictures 2 years in a row and added a new one, but now I just want to redo them completely. And my goal is to have those done for the Indie Craft experience, which is not this coming weekend, but the next weekend.
Was that the 22nd and 23rd? Is that right?
I think so.
I think that's right.
Yeah, I think the 25th is a Monday, so that sounds right. Yeah, so that's my big next goal for the next month.
No, it's the 23rd and 24th.
23rd and 24th?
23, 24.
Okay. And that's going to be at the World Congress Center, so they've upped it this year. It's way bigger.
That's going to be fun.
I'm excited.
Come get your Christmas gifts.
We can do that for a meetup.
Yeah.
I mean, there's plenty of stuff down there. So, if you're following along on BubbleStuff and you want to hang out, talk to Joe and Coach Steve, come hang out. We'll figure something out down at ICE. That'd be a great time.
It's really fun. And there's just so many good artists and makers and people to talk to about their stuff. And it's going to be a really nice, bright space with Christmas music and food. And it's fun. So that's my next goal for hopefully by next week. And then after that, I want to draw another original for the month. And I'm kind of using that as the reward for getting the calendars done.
I like that. You've got to find the balance in between creative pursuit and it's the balance between production and creativity, right? Like you don't want to just become a machine of churning everything out. I like that you're using the creative aspect as the reward. That's to do the things that maybe aren't necessarily fun because you're assembling things and reconfiguring,
measuring and aligning. And one of the calendars is just going to be standard pictures, but the other one I'm trying to make kind of punny and ridiculous. So that's a little bit fun, but I'm getting stumped on it. So
gotcha.
Try and pull some ideas out.
Yeah. My head's just turning, thinking of things.
So Hornbill.
Finishing
the Hornbill. So before we get into maybe you can just go ahead and screen share the finished product, and interested to hear a little bit about your process on it and where it started from and all of that.
I have so many more bubbles. I mean, I know I got double, but now it's just nothing but boba at the bottom.
And I just asked you a question as you have a mouth full of them.
I
Which
should have
is,
known.
Which is great.
should've known.
And this is another little segment where it's going to help if you guys go over to the YouTube channel and kind of watch along with us. I think we're at, let me see what minute we're at right now. We're at 44, 46.
Yeah.
So if you guys want to hop over to YouTube, if you want to take a look at the things that we're screen sharing, if not, follow us on Instagram, Angie at Angie Kakoma Herb, and then Kevin at _ARC1 TECT, and then me at Tim Herb.
Yeah, we're all pretty good at posting the same stuff on our.
Yeah, and I
On
don't,
our
you know, the YouTube stuff this is all stuff that we will most likely be posting to our social media channels to begin with, but it's just good to have a visual aid, not necessarily that we're going to get focusing on like, oh, look at this one line and the way it curves or
But it's
whatever.
show and tell.
Yeah,
Like,
it is.
Look what I did,
Right, exactly,
guys.
exactly.
It
So
really is crazy how good phone cameras are. Like
I
you can
know.
see every single pore in that paper.
yeah, it's pretty great.
Yeah, that's my hornbill. That's the pencil.
It's the mash bill.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
It's what Kevin was just talking about with the bourbons being blended together.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
my mash. There's a little bit of each bird I've ever seen added.
That's what the
into
drops are for.
each tier. Yeah, I have I can't remember what my book of birds is, but it's just a lot of close-up
It's like
photographs.
an Audubon book, right?
I think that sounds right. Just really high quality close-up pictures of really pretty birds, and I was just flipping through there. And I don't even think I saw this hornbill, but I saw a hornbill, and so I started Googling because they're really cute and sassy looking. And I found one that I liked, and then I usually get maybe 4 or 5 reference pictures of the same animal, but from different angles. So I'll get one picture. In this case, I got one that had really pretty patterns on its wings, and then a picture that was a really clear shot of the beak and what that looks like. And I flip back through them all as I draw and kind of pick and choose characters from each bird.
Yeah.
And which ones I like and what I want my hornbill to look like. So this is a specific hornbill. It's called a Jackson's hornbill. And
You know what I really appreciate about the stuff that you produce, and especially Chomp and Stop was the first time I had I see you guys at most of the festivals that you do whenever you've got your booth set up, but Chomp and Stop was the only one that I've spent a significant time at the booth to hear you sort of engage with people coming in and out. And one of the things that caught me was that the stuff that you work on has a level of specificity to it that is not just like, I'm going to do the crowd favorites or the easy out, right? Like you have things that are readily recognizable, right? Like everybody's going to know, oh, that's an orca or that's whatever. But somebody came up and were like, oh, is that a humpback? And it was a different type of whale, but it was just like a very specific. This hornbill is another example of that, of like, it's not necessarily the easy out for, I want to do a bird, so I'm going to do a toucan, which is kind of similar, or a parrot, you know, like not to say that those things are wrong takes to take on it, but that because of the act of doing and producing at the level of sophistication that you're doing, you're also expanding that catalog to a level of specificity that is more in depth than just at the surface level, which I really appreciate.
thanks. Yeah, I've noticed that over the past few years, my art has gotten more. I'm trying to draw more honest to what the animal really looks like, and still find a way to incorporate my style.
Right.
But it used to be, here's a purple whale, here's an orange whale,
Right.
and now this is what this bird looks like, but it's still in my style.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what it looks like when I colored it. So I use markers. I have a whole bucket of markers, and most of the markers aren't even in the bucket. They're on the floor. And I'll take a piece of scrap paper and go through them color by color and find the shade that I want. And
Ooh, I want to do this too. Lessons learned will be on the monthly recap. And then I also want to share progress photos of that specifically, where you're looking at color palettes and
Okay.
stuff like that. Your tests of, you know, you went through so many tests with Day's sign and stuff like that. Again, I think those two things are linked together based on working on something and trying it out small scale before you blow it up to full size to make sure that you've got the parts and pieces worked out, because I think that sort of tells the story. And unfortunately on social media, not for a bad thing, I think that's what people want to see is the finished product. But I think as sort of in the spirit of what this show is to me anyway, is sort of talking about the process and becoming more accountable to each other and to ourselves. I don't want us to gloss over the points that you have to take along the way, which is, like you're saying, you've got this whole piece of scrap paper that is just a bunch of different color swatches or techniques for how you want the feathers to look or whatever. You've got a lot of different pieces of wood that you stained a certain way or cut a certain way, and that maybe this inlay worked here, but it didn't work in this application or whatever. So
Yeah, I put a lot of that stuff on my stories, but it goes away and then it just looks like
yeah,
all that's posted is the main product. But
right.
we'll find pieces of scrap paper
Yeah.
in the house, and I can tell what animal I was drawing based on
Yeah.
what color test. I was like, oh, this is from the snail.
Yeah, yeah,
This is when I was picking his shell out.
Yep.
Yeah, so I try to get like for the beak, I picked the picture where the bird had my favorite beak, and I try to match the colors to that as closely as I can. I also wanted to use green more in this drawing because I get stuck. I gravitate towards yellow, orange, and blue. Those are my favorites.
yeah,
And in looking at like my catalog, what do I need to add to it? I
right.
need some greens. So
I like it.
thanks.
Very cool.
Thanks.
And ice.
There's ice.
Yep. Holidays shoptacular.
November 23rd and 24th, 11 to 6. It costs $5 to get in, but for the first,
I think that includes hot chocolate or something, right? I think it had in the past.
I don't know. I can't remember if they do it for the holiday one. It's down there in little letters. But kids are free under 12. But for the first 250 people on each day, you get a little swag bag. You get a canvas bag.
That's what it was.
And then artists can contribute to that. So whether they put stickers or buttons or business cards in there, you don't really know until you get there. So there's always a line for these shows, which is really nice because it's nice to have it start and have people immediately there.
Yeah.
Coming to look at your stuff. So I'm really excited.
Cool.
Yeah. There's
All
Kevin.
right, Kevin.
Look at it.
Is there any particular part you want me to zoom in on?
That is a monster.
It is a monster.
My God. I can't believe that I managed to pull this fucking thing off, guys. I really.
Well, the most impressive thing to me is how well you cordoned off every single piece to incorporate each prompt. I mean, the fact that you had the forethought to say, okay, this right here is going to be day 1, but this part right here is going to be day 2, and this day 3, et cetera, et cetera. I just find that fascinating, your level of planning in there.
Yeah, well, you guys came over that first day, and I was like, I'm going to try something crazy. Like, I had done this huge block diagram, this roadmap to say, okay, I can get 31. I think I can get 31 concepts in here. And this is kind of really broad brushstrokes on how I think they might all integrate. And obviously, I found a lot of their cross references and the development. I didn't know what every little thing was going to look like, but I knew what their maybe motivation was or how they were going to relate to each other. So for those of you that don't know what Inktober is, it's a 31-day art challenge of drawing in pen and ink every single day. And each day of the month comes with a word associated with it that people draw a particular sketch or prompt from that word. And so last year I did it and I came up short. I think I made it through like the first 20 days or something like that. So this year, not only did I want to challenge myself to do all 31 days, but I wanted to do 31 days in the exact same piece, essentially, or finished product. So part of that was looking at the prompt list, seeing words that kind of stood out, like dragon obviously was one that was pretty identifiable. And then starting to drive the concept from there. The first one was Ring, which was where I kind of started with that, with this alien species that drove these ring-shaped spaceships down to these planets, and they're a species of terraforming aliens that would just inhabit these planets for long periods of time. And so then that started to drive the rest of the concept. So once I knew that, I kind of drew this shape, it all started to fill in itself, right? So like the shape of the spaceship has this eye that's sort of always looking over the rest of the landscape that it's inhabiting. And if you think about these things, it starts to create this little mini environment in and of itself. So there's things that the ship and the species is interacting with the planet and vice versa. So it became this ecology of terraforming, as I called it. So yeah, that was really the inception for that, was to look at how all of these things would tie together and challenge myself to do things that I maybe hadn't in the past. So there's a narrative for all of these characters and a backstory, and all of that's on my Instagram. And eventually I may do some sort of print and companion booklet or something that goes along with this. Or, Angie had an idea to do like a little stat card for every one of the characters or something, or like a standalone sheet. I will say I had a couple of favorites. So yeah, that guy, you'll see a lot of influences of mine, artistically speaking, growing up. Calvin and Hobbes, Dragon Ball Z, stuff like that. So you see a lot of that, especially in like the spaceship that you're on right there with the dragon is very much akin to something that is a hybrid between the Saiyan pods that Vegeta and Raditz came down on, and Nappa, and components from Mr. Freeze from Batman the Animated Series. Like, you see all of these things start to play out. The concept for the guy for coat was thinking about Avatar: The Last Airbender and the markings on Aang in that cartoon, some of the eyes, and taking influence from that. That one character down at the bottom that you were looking at is very reminiscent of Hobbes from Calvin and Hobbes jumping out and tackling these other guys. And this, yeah, so it was just this really fun exercise of like just having this framework to allow myself to play in, and I really, really enjoyed that. And while there was a lot of stuff that I wasn't extremely or completely happy with, I'm happy that I was able to do it, right? Like that's what I ultimately was left with, was that I wasn't so hung up on, wow, I really kind of fucked up this proportion or this angle or this little component of this one character, or this looks a little bit off. I could see it for the whole thing as an entirety. And because there's so much in there, you sort of don't get to focus on the little things as much, so
there's so much in there. I think that's what blows me away, is that that's probably like most people's years worth of work. And not only is it a crazy amount of drawing to get done in such a short period of time, but it's all stuff that you made up. Like there aren't any reference pictures on the internet for these hornbills. Like you just came up with all of these characters and gave them all backstories, and they all fit in their little spot.
Well, it started, the big thing creatively for me was trying to find the tie between what I do professionally and what I want to do creatively. And ultimately there's always been some connection there. And so one of the things with architecture and design is like it's form follows function, right? Character design is the exact same thing. You have a function or a backstory to a character that their form follows suit. So like once I knew what all these characters were, I knew how to, like, some of the ideas came up as a result of that. So the dragons, for example, I started thinking about, well, how are dragons, like what makes a dragon what it is for us as a species? And it was a generated image based on the predators that we had ancestrally. So for this species, I wanted to think about, okay, well, what things on this planet would be sort of intimidating to them? So they were going to have one eye, because it's a sort of reflection on these spaceships that look like eyes floating on the horizon. So it's like this single eye always looking at them. But then I wanted to imbue some of the economy because the dragons only come out whenever the ships are there because they're there to catch the things falling off of the ship and the sort of macro economy happening on the planet. So they have these stones and gemstones that grow on them, and people are trying to get those because that creates another sub economy. So it's like this constant, like, you see all of these things start to play out and cross reference each other back and forth, which it was really fun. I mean, it was a really fun process. And that little like barnacle thing, if for nothing else, to spend a month drawing to come out with this little character that
That's my
now I want to
favorite.
draw on everything.
You should.
Those little 3-eyed guys that
They're great. You should. Ooh, you should get little clear stickers made of them, and you can just pop them on all your stuff at home. You just have them on your water bottles, your coffee cups.
There's a video, Tim, if you want to pull that up, and then I'll stop talking about this thing. So Michelle, it took a month. I started it the beginning of October, and again, it was 31 days. So I tried to do a hard stop at an hour or 2 hours a night. I'd spend my lunch break trying to sketch and get some concepts for silhouettes and character designs and stuff like that. And then at night, I would go through and actually put them down, mask them out, and then go back and ink over them. So,
You ready for me to start the video?
yeah, go for it.
Again, we're at 1 hour and 45 seconds.
And all this stuff's up on my Instagram as well. This is just a little brief 10-second video that just pans left to right over the whole thing that shows all the interaction between everything and all that. So that was it.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
All right.
It's pretty amazing. All right, I'll breeze through this real quick.
No, that's not why we're here.
Oh, wait.
Oh,
You still have upcoming projects to go. I mean, we don't have any time constraints, right? Do we?
No.
Okay.
I don't.
Just do a little teaser. Just a little tease.
I can go to my stuff if you want to come back to this.
MySpace.
No, I'll knock it out real quick. So one of the ideas that I had trying to come up with a new concept or a new creative project was thinking about both generating ideas and concepts and then what interests me professionally or creatively. And so thinking about the idea of home or what home means to people and maybe translating that to set and setting. Thinking about that as it relates to the broader context, not just for me personally, but what it means to us culturally. And ultimately, what I think a lot of us always come back to in our communications at dinner parties and stuff like that is, what show are you watching on Netflix? What movie did you just see? And reading into how subliminally every form of narrative is always grounded in set and setting, and trying to find a way to use that as an idea generator and maybe reconfiguring that or re-envisioning that in my style to do these architectural sketches that would ground a reference for famous places in pop culture that aren't necessarily that don't scream what their subject matter is, but upon further investigation really starts to tell the story. Because as much as we all know, if we sit here and think about the house from Breaking Bad being a character just as much as Walter White or Jesse Pinkman, or the building in The Office being just as much a character as the individuals that inhabited it, it's not always the focal point of fan art or subject material that people do and create. So that's sort of where this new creative project has taken me, is starting to explore that. So the proof of concept that I'm working on right now is actually doing one of my house and doing an architectural sketch of my house, and then creating an overlay that adds context to the things that I really enjoy or that make that house a home. So just as much as that is a proof of concept for me personally, the goal is to kind of do that with these other references in pop culture. So to use one that I just mentioned, Breaking Bad, it would be an architectural sketch of the house from Breaking Bad, and then a separate overlay that would go over that would have the pizza on the roof or the RV in the driveway, stuff like that. So
And then this is the logo.
So yeah, that's the
Here's your
logo.
stamp.
I'm calling it No Place Like Home. Again, it goes back to this concept from Wizard of Oz. It ties it into pop culture of there's no place like home. And yeah, those are my initials kind of in the section perspective. So I think there's a picture. Yeah. So that's the house that I'm working on right now. So,
Have you posted this one to Instagram yet?
not the whole thing. I just did a teaser. I'll post the whole thing as it gets finished up. But yeah, that's where we are with it. And that's why I got the blue pins. I'm still trying to play with the format. I go through and block everything out with blue pencil, and it's on this blue inked title block. And then so far, I've been coming back with the black ink. I just think visually it may be more appealing if it's all blue on the white background and just kind of make this complete product. So
I like the way it looks with the black on it. I don't think the blue will look bad. I think that's an awesome idea too, but I like the way this looks.
thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it looks pretty amazing. First thing, I
Yeah.
talked about it last Monday.
Mhm.
Bought a new sander. Tired of lawnmower hand after sitting and prepping stock for an hour. Coming away feeling like my hand's gonna fall off. Got a Festool ETS 125 and the dust collection adapter that goes with it. It's pretty amazing. Like there's nothing left. Like I don't get lawnmower hand, and then there's nothing left on the piece I'm working on in terms of sawdust. There's like almost no cleanup involved. Like there's no debris because it's vacuuming up so much as it's going along.
That's always the problem I have with my DeWalt is that it doesn't always capture everything as I'm sanding.
Yeah. This has it. One of the drawbacks is it does have its own what would you call that? Formation or pattern of holes in the sanding discs. But it has more.
So you can't pick up them from from Lowe's or anything
Nope.
like that?
You got to
Really?
buy them online, yeah,
Oh, damn.
or go to a Festool place. But they last longer for sure. It's higher quality stuff. This thing feels like a freaking Rolls Royce compared to that Bauer Harbor Freight one that I was using. But
Yeah.
so I talked about it in goals, but having making some ornaments or coasters out of essentially scrap wood that I had. So bought a grab bag on Amazon, got it. It was 90% cedar, like aromatic cedar. It's purple and white, has some cool patterning to it. Smells just like a hamster's cage. Smells, because I'm pretty sure they use cedar chips or cedar dust in
Like dog kennels and dog beds. and
yeah,
stuff.
exactly. It smells just like that. Right. Yeah.
It's not a bad smell. It's just
No.
very specific.
No,
Yeah,
it's not. That's
definitely.
where shellac comes in handy because shellac is a odor blocker. So like on one side of that, you're not going to smell it. On the other side, you will.
Can they see it?
I can switch. Let's see.
Oh, I like that. Michelle mentions making a list of some of these products and stuff. Yeah, that'll be something I'll add to my list to be better about, is helping in the post-production. I've been pretty bad about that for a couple of months on my part for the Atlanta United show and for this. So I will work on doing show notes and having timestamps in the YouTube video so that you can go to these points.
So if you're watching on the YouTube, you could see like this is the cutout essentially of what the CNC machine did, and I can't get super close, but you can see whenever I do the screen share again, you will be able to see, there we go, how clean that is. That's one thing I haven't had happen with the CNC is something coming out this clean. I think it was a combination of getting new, nice, like fine bits. And then
this was such an
the cedar.
unintentional thing, but it was, I love this.
It looks
Yeah.
really nice.
Again, for you to have just done this on a whim right
this is
before
like
we
a byproduct.
started,
Yeah.
that is really, really cool. I really like that.
Yeah. So that's so
And especially if you were to put this on a wall, like with that extra thickness, it allows it to float out from the face of the wall some. That's really
so that's
cool.
one of the things that it's like byproducts of what I'm toying around with. So I've tried it. I think I've done the Georgia cutout with 3 different types of wood. I've done it with red oak, which is a nicer wood than the other two, but it frays a good bit, and it's to me it's a little hard to. It doesn't finish the way that I intend on it to. There's poplar too, which Kevin has in his hand.
It's pretty cool.
Which I did. It's cottonwood, whatever. It's really
Yeah.
it's really fibrous material. But that's one of the things that I'm trying to do too, is like trying to figure out how to interchange or interlock all these things. So that is actually a pretty good way to use waste, because
absolutely,
for all intents and purposes, this was just going to go to waste. Either that or it's going to be some sort of stencil.
You cut that down and you've got this already assembled, that's a really, I mean, either way you do this, I think it looks really great.
Yeah. So we took the cedar, and it's a nice little hardwood, right? It's got I mean, it's pretty I'm surprised I didn't wake the dog up. But it's pretty hard. It cuts really well, and I have a lot of it in the shed, or in the garage. And it
in the shed, in the workroom.
In
it's
the
just
workroom.
the garage.
The workshop, the garage.
This is our studio.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there aren't any cars that are supposed to be in.
Yeah, but I carved this out. I carved it out.
Just beds and furniture.
I carved it out, and initially just making a coaster, and I was like, wait, I can take, easel has a couple stock, like hundreds of stock shapes. So I dropped a heart in the middle of it, carved it out, and then that has like a kind of a recess. So that's another thing I was thinking, was making an inlay, either that or cutting. Angie suggested cutting all the way through, having it see-through. But then just drilling a hole in the top left, and now it goes from being a coaster to being a Christmas ornament.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's really cool.
A lot of versatility. Here's a little sample, I guess. The red oak on the left with some walnut stain unstained in the middle, and then some poplar on the right.
What I've loved about this is it goes back to what we were talking about early on in the show, is that as you've worked with these materials and you've gone through this more, what you originally intended these to be, it doesn't invalidate it. This can still be a coaster, but you've now found 6 other uses for this and the byproduct that are just as valid, or maybe more beneficial, or more viable as a product than what your original assumptions were, just as the act of producing and learning and growing has led you down that path.
Yeah, it's fair. Not just that. I mean, it's been a nice learning experience too. Like finding out what wood needs more, like as I move towards this, going into a product and going into a production line, what type of wood is going to have the right balance of attractivity, production time, and then I guess production time would include cleanup time too, but then and the cost of materials. And that's something that I'm figuring out too. I mean, so far the cedar required like 3 strokes of sandpaper afterwards, and it was done.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. Which is crazy to me, because something like poplar took forever because of how fibrous it is and how stringy it is. And it doesn't come off in sawdust. It comes off in like big strands, which is really crazy.
Yeah, it's turned out great.
And then
the big boy.
The big boy. The picture up on the screen right now. So this is the one that we were talking about failing multiple times, working on a commission for Daylight Glassworks. It finally worked last night. So it's like what it ended up being, a 20-inch by, or 21-inch by 24-inch. No, 21-inch tall by 36-inch wide sign. It's like 24 inches wide in terms of the cut. Piece of birch. It's birch plywood, which I really enjoy working with. Like, it's very quick to sand. It's quick to seal. I think you have to be kind of choosy. Anything that you get from big box stores, you have to be pretty vigilant in how you have to do a lot of inspection. Quality control is a great term for it, because we've seen some really bad birch plywood at Home Depot. But the stuff that we found for this, Angie found a couple pieces for these. What did you say? The 4th sheet, maybe? This is the 4th sheet that we've done?
I think so.
Yeah. And it was one of the nicest ones, if not the nicest one that we found. I'd say it's probably the nicest one that we found. It has a lot of really cool, like, has waves, and it has also like side to side grain, like kind of more linear.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just kind of the overhead shot of the CNC carving last night, kind of making its final passes, and then
Look at that smile.
Sweet relief.
yeah, that's a relief smile. But there it is, right there. Anyway, I was pretty happy with that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and now we're on to the next thing, which is building a frame for it.
Building a frame, and then you're going to cut out the little.
Oh yeah. So there are tabs in there. So just to, if you guys are looking at the screen, if not, if you guys have done any crafting with either a Cricut or a silhouette machine or CNC or I guess laser cutters would come into handy, or it can't come into play here too. Anytime you're cutting out an actual solid piece, like the inside of a D, if you're carving a D in this case, you would put. You would need. You would need to put tabs in there because what happens with the CNC is if it cuts the entire inside of the letter out, it's going to end up loose. It's going to fall out. It's going to get loose. It's going to hit the bit. It's going to like shoot all over the place. It's going to get ruined.
Sucked up the dust collector.
Sucked up the dust collector. There are many of inside of R's and D's inside of the. I did a lot of R&D. Yeah, sucking up the R.
No.
The R's and the D's into the dust collector. But yeah, there's 2 tabs on there. So whenever you get done, it's a matter of just taking a little razor blade, knocking that off, and then sanding the edges flat, and then gluing it in on the backer board. Yeah.
Now, how will you make sure that you've maintained your spacing appropriately? Are you going to get some shims or something to put in there?
Let me do it.
Yeah, I'm gonna let her do it.
Let me do it.
Okay.
We're not going to put glue all the way at the edges, just maybe in the center of the cutout, so that if I do need to manipulate it a little bit, it's not going to be like squeezing glue out the sides.
No.
Yeah.
That definitely is going to be a difficult portion of it.
Mm-hmm.
Super glue might be the way to go.
We could do some practice with all the.
Look at. I say that to say, if you know the width of your gap that's on there, you can look at things like tile shims.
Screwdriver
that make sure that your grout lines are consistent in tile. They're pretty cheap, and you just put those in there and make sure that you've got a consistent gap all the way around.
That's one thing we can use all of the mistakes. We can practice with those.
Yeah.
Because we've got lots of them, so we can just practice gluing O's and R's and suns.
So that is so you've got to build the frame and then obviously cut out those and mount them. But that's awesome, man. Congrats.
Thank you.
I know that's a huge step. I mean, two projects in a week.
Yeah, and the machine part is done and perfect, and now the rest of it's just your woodworking. And
That's
stuff
great.
that you like to do separately.
That's great.
This was the first project. I think this legitimately was this the first set of cutouts, the HB4D letters that are on the table.
I think it was.
Yeah, probably.
And this is cheap. This is cheap wood. I need to do this out of hardwood, or just make a inlay for this.
So so you've got that, and then so that's your next thing, right?
Next thing is building the frame for sure.
Right.
Yeah, just got a router and a router table today,
Nice.
which is going to help production tremendously, I think, especially when it comes to frames, because I am very apprehensive about using the table saw, and the table saw that we have is not necessarily the best or most square thing in the world. So cutting out the hard part about a frame, I think, is getting the groove on the inside, the rabbet.
Yeah.
For the piece to reset, or like a recess for the piece to sit in.
Yeah.
It's it's not super easy.
You just run your table saw for that, and then you'll get to know your table saw better.
No, I'm just gonna use the router table.
Okay.
Yeah. 1 pass versus 2 passes.
It's true. Okay.
Just run it through.
Hard pass.
All right. So what else you got? You got anything? I don't want to cut you off before.
No, I'm good.
Those other things. So what I sent both of you. I don't know if you listened to it. I know Tim did. The creator.
Did you send it to her?
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought I did.
What was it?
Maybe
Projects versus product. Make a product.
No, thank
not
you.
a project.
You said you would, and then you didn't.
I'm sorry. So Jake Parker, who created Inktober, he also has like a video series where he talks about just different things about how to do X, Y, or Z creatively or professionally if you're trying to get your creative pursuits to become more of a business rather than just a hobby. And he had this talk, and what I think we've all been inherently doing throughout this process is coming up with a way to create products rather than projects. And so I think that that's pretty awesome. And that's one of the things that I want anybody that's listening to this, maybe struggling to get things off of the ground, is rather than having these ideas of things to do or a project, you come up with a way to turn that project into a finished product that you can frame or produce in a manner that you are willing to sell or put out there, if for no other reason, just to complete something, because a project is not something that necessarily motivates people to see a project all the way through. So that was a big sort of learning thing for me this week, that restructuring or reframing how I approach these quote unquote projects as just a step to a larger product, I think is a meaningful one as it relates to sort of the finishing and the work and stuff that goes into it. Last thing I want to talk about is comparisons. And I'm sure that this is something that came up on the field trip, and it's something that I struggle with a lot, which is comparing myself to other artists or other creative individuals and trying to get myself into a position to I'm reading a book right now by an author that's not entirely PC to most people, but Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Avoiding Chaos in Your Life. And one of his chapters, which I think is really great, is it's titled "Compare Yourself to who you were yesterday, not to somebody else today," which is, rather than trying to seek validation or to discredit yourself by comparing yourself to other people who have a different set of circumstances and different skill sets and different just a different approach to their product, comparing yourself to what you previously did or previously failed at and finding successes or benefits in that. So that's, I think, tied to this whole approach to trying to find out these lessons learned and stuff like that, where, to your point, even though you're making mistakes, you're not continuing to perpetuate it and trying to remind anybody listening to this to do the same thing. Like, unless you're the 1% of 1%, you're not ever going to be the best at anything. And comparing yourself to these artists and stuff and I'm guilty of it too, of like, well, why didn't I get X amount of, likes or views or whatever the hell it is, some validation that I'm seeking by posting these things. Ultimately, it doesn't matter. I've done it, and that's validation in and of itself. And I've learned something, and I'm hoping that I can channel that into doing it better next time. So,
yeah, that feeds into social media, and look, everybody's putting out their best
right
all the time. And so that's what you're comparing yourself to. And especially for you, Tim, Kevin and I have stuff that we've been working on for years, and we're making progress each week on our goals. But you're in the scope of who's making the most progress. I think you get a lot more extra points because what you're making progress on is completely new territory.
You're doing shit that like, you can pick up a pencil and take a stab at an ink drawing. I mean, like, to be completely honest, like the comparison earlier about like our mistakes, maybe we can fix them or reconcile them in the act of the process. Part of that is both how the product is made and also the person it also falls on the responsibility of the person creating something to know how to fix their own mistakes. And that's something that you'll inherently figure out. But you're doing something that, if I was tasked to do that, I wouldn't know where the fuck to start. So like, you're already here compared to me and 85% of anybody else that's interested in getting into woodworking or anything else, just based on putting in the reps. And that's fucking awesome. Like, I can't stress that enough. So
Yeah, I can take something I drew and compare it to how I was doing a couple years ago and see progress, but you can take something and say, okay, I've been doing this for 1 month. Here's what I've created so far. And I've got finished projects and products and ideas. And so it might look like there's catching up to do, but you've started from square one.
But that's what I want to do. Like you're challenging me to do the same thing, right? Like because you're in that position because you're doing something completely new and uncharted territory, right? So it's pushing me to try to do things that that somebody else can't compare themselves like that. I don't have a frame of reference to try to compare myself to because I want to be I want to be sort of the trendsetter and doing something and learning something new because otherwise I'm always going to find ways that I'm not doing it good enough or somebody that's doing it better or whatever, you know?
Well, I appreciate it. I don't know what else to say other than that. No, and it's helped having you guys motivate me too and to help encourage me. I think there's a nice circle of us just pushing each other. And whether that's deliberately through praise, through holding each other accountable as to what our goals are, what we're actually wanting to do, trying to do, hobby versus product versus project. I don't know.
But keep doing that. I mean, that's again, it comes back to product versus project. Is like if you set out to create a product and you tell if you tell your close friends and family, the accountability will inherently be there. They will ask you questions about how this product and project is going and what progress you're making on it. So, you know, anybody listening to this is us reminding you to get back to task and working on that thing that you've been putting off or pursuing and making some progress towards that effort or that endeavor and sharing it with us. Like that's a big part of what we want to do with this show. That's why we do the live chat and everything else, is that we're not just accountable to the three of us now. We're accountable to everybody else who's listening to this too, which is that's kind of a daunting task.
It worked though. We all got a lot of stuff done.
Great work, by the way. For the first
Yeah.
week, 2 weeks of doing this, I feel like this has been huge.
Yes.
I mean, I feel really motivated to keep the ball rolling. So with that, what's the plan for next week for the two of you?
Calendars.
Finishing the commission.
Right on.
Getting that done. Michelle asked if we've read the poem Desiderata. Desiderata?
I haven't.
By Max Ehrman. She says it's exactly what you're talking about. We'll have to take a look at it.
I'm going to write it down. Can you pull it up? I wonder how long it is, if we can pull it up and we can just read it aloud on the show. But so next week for me, I want to do at least the first pass at one of the commissions that I've got on my table right now for a friend of mine whose cat passed away. They want to, her sister for her birthday wants to do a commission including her cat, and she used to play in a band. So my concept is to have her and her cats in a band together rocking out on stage. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Pretty great.
Yeah. So it's to do that and then to finish some of the base drawing for my proof of concept. I got a long way to go before I start rolling this out, but I've got, the list keeps growing. I think I'm up to like 60 different places.
Is the White House on there?
No, it's not, but well played. Well played.
Kevin put on his Instagram requests for favorite movies and TV shows so he could make lists of famous settings from those, and Tim just sent him how many? 10?
It was 7 within 2 minutes.
All of just things that were set in the White House.
It was
just see
Independence
how mad
Day.
he could make Kevin.
Independence Day, Mars Attacks, American President, Dave, First Kid, West Wing. and then there was one more in there.
White
Olympus
House
has
has fallen.
fallen.
Oh no, so was it White House down and then Olympus has fallen?
It's
Yeah.
so ridiculous.
But are you gonna do it though?
God.
You could legitimately get a couple. I think the Independence Day one seriously would be kind of cool. That the overlay is the ship
Or
over
just
the.
do one that includes all White House movies. So like it's got Independence Day ship, but with the aliens from Mars attacks on the lawn.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that'd be fun.
Which one did you get besides the White House? That doesn't count. Which one did you get the most often?
All of them were completely. I didn't get any repeats.
Really?
No, I didn't get any repeating ones, and I posted every one of them that I got. So, and for the first run of that, I think I ended up getting like 15 or 16 responses, and I posted it as a highlight on my page, and I'll run it again once I start.
That'll keep
getting
you busy
into
for
this.
like 6 months.
Dude. Yeah, I mean, I've got so many in my notebook. It's crazy. But I did get some suggestion. Like the other side of this that I'm really excited about is that as a result of getting suggestions for things that I'm just because I didn't tell people why I was asking the question of like, what's your favorite movie or TV show? Because again, I think this is a subliminal thing that people just sort of overlook. But as a result of that, I was getting suggestions by people that were suggesting just genuinely their favorite movies and TV shows. And what that's done is it's now created a list of movies and TV shows that I want to check out. Like The Fall, you were talking about, like you were really big into, and that was suggested by Kelly Francis, who
Was that Darren Aronofsky?
Oh, really?
No, who did that one?
It's not the TV show. It's the movie.
the movie with Lee Pace.
with Lee Pace and
It's the guy who did The Cell.
yes, what is his name?
Indian guy,
Yes.
correct?
Yes. But that movie, it took them I was obsessed with it for a really long time. It took them 2 years to film it, and they filmed it in like I can't remember how many dozens of countries.
Yeah.
And they just
But the main hospital is in South Africa in Cape Town, I believe.
I think so. They don't really ever, at least I don't remember them making it clear where they were.
But that's what she was saying, is that like the whole movie is just beautiful with a lot of different
yeah, it's a lot
places
of
and
like
locations.
storytelling, and then you're
Yeah.
watching it.
What
unfold.
about Life of Pi? Did
Just
anybody
draw a
put that?
boat?
Yeah,
Just
no,
draw a
seriously.
boat. No, that's a good
It
one.
was
Yeah.
the entire movie was
Yeah.
on that
Yeah.
boat.
But yeah, again, you think about that, but it's like, okay, so
Lock
what?
with Lock with Tom Hardy, where he's driving the entire time. He's just in his car the
Devil?
entire time. Devil? It's the elevator.
But yeah, every movie, like without that, it can't be grounded, right? Like you have no context, and so it's been a very interesting thought process for me to think not just about like what makes a successful narrative or a successful setting in a movie or film format, but also like what makes your house a home. You know, that's something that I've always been very interested in growing up, and right now my life is something that I'm really working to figure out, is like that transition between just a place and something that's more than just the walls that you occupy space in. So yeah. All right. Oh, did you pull up the poem? Were you able to find it?
Oh, I can.
I mean, I think that'd be a good way to end the show, right?
If you want to read it.
Is it super long? Is it a haiku?
It is not a haiku.
Wow.
It is very long.
Wow.
It's definitely not short. I think we should just drive people to this.
Yes, I agree. That is,
You can go to mwkworks.com. And then I think you should be able to just navigate to the Desiderata, or just go to mwkworks.com/Desiderata, DESIDERATA.html, or just search it. And yeah, take a look at that. I'm interested to read that.
Yeah, definitely will. All right. So thank you guys so much for tuning in and checking us out. If you want to see progress posts and stuff that we're working on, aside from the screen share on the show, the best place to find all of our ongoings and where we're posting most of our efforts at is on Instagram. So you can find us collectively at Home Before Dark. I've been posting a lot of stuff on the show page, that's before spelled being the number 4, but then individually, Angie, where can they find you at?
Angie Kokoma Herb, and I'll spell the whole thing out this time. It's ANGIECOCCOMAHERB. And right now I have a poll on my stories for what that other original is going to be for the month. It was between an African dog and a poison dart frog. And the dog was winning when we started the podcast, and now they're starting to even out. So
that's another thing that I've come to enjoy is like, as much as social media can be a crippling thing of not getting the validation or
African
the
dog
response.
is killing it now.
is it?
It's up by 30%.
No, but it
Nice.
was up by like 75.
It's 64 to 36 right now. African dog.
Oh,
I want to draw.
went
Yeah,
frog.
I want to draw them both, but I really like African.
Well, I told her that she can draw it and then we can smoke the poison off its back.
There you go. That's
Yeah.
what I'm planning to do in March. But yeah, as far as social media goes, like you mentioning the poll and question thing, like that's been a fun thing for me to do. It's like, I haven't used social media for a artistic endeavor in a long time. And that's honestly how I've mentioned it on the show a number of times, but my best friends that live in Atlanta, aside from you, obviously, I met through the Free Art Friday scene in Atlanta, which was a social media driven artistic effort here in the city. So it's cool to get back into the spin of that and get back into the spirit of that, of posting things and finding new people to have these communications with about creative efforts, which has been a lot of fun. Tim, where can they find you at?
You can find me at Tim Herb, TimHerb.
And you can find me as well at The Architect. That's at _ARC, the number 1 TECT. Thank you guys so much. Again, if you're working on something or if you have an idea for something that you want us to make sure that we hound you about and get regular updates, please let us know. You can email us or tweet us, the same handles. However you found us, thank you so much. Be sure to hit subscribe, like, or leave us a rating or a review to hear it read aloud on the show. As always, be home before dark.
Bye.
Bye.